This is Vincent van Gogh, born March 30th, 1853 in Zundert, Netherlands. Today's world, Vincent van Gogh is a household name, but back in the 1800s, well, no one really gave a fuck about him. This here is the only painting Vincent ever sold in his lifetime. He was so underappreciated that even his parents didn't care about him. He was constantly at conflict with his father over Vincent's modern ideas. Things got so bad between them that in 1881, Vincent was asked to leave home by his father. Now I know what you're thinking. Wasn't Vincent pushing 30 at the time? Well, back then it wasn't abnormal for a man to live with his parents until he was married. But his relationship with his parents wasn't the only trouble in his life. By his late 20s, he was broke, alone, and living in poverty. This life of pain would soon take a toll on his mental health, experiencing depression, anxiety, hallucinations, and confusion. During his mental episodes, Vincent would be completely and utterly confused, with no recollection of his words or actions. One episode was so bad that in confusion, Vincent chopped off his own ear, walked into a brothel, and handed his severed ear to a prostitute. To this day, it is not known what mental illness Vincent suffered from. Vincent was soon admitted to a mental asylum, where he was prescribed bromide and therapy baths, a treatment where patients were placed in warm baths for hours or even days and wrapped in rubber sheets to make them sweat profusely. In other words, torture. It's safe to say treatment for mental health issues in the 19th century were not great, and as a result, Vincent's mental episodes continued. Now, after all I've told you so far, you may be wondering, what made Van Gogh so damn good? Why is this manic man who accomplished nothing in his lifetime so damn revered? Was it his painting skills? No, not exactly. For you to understand why Van Gogh was so beloved as an artist, I'd have to show you. Let's take a look at these paintings. What feelings do you get when you see them? Pause this video and take a second to truly look and think about it. Chances are you probably said happiness, peace, calm, but what are the odds that any of you said boring? I mean, I personally agree. A cafe, a field, some sunflowers, this is about as boring as baseball. But for some reason, it's still so fascinating to look at. It entrances you. How is it possible for the brushstrokes of a mad, manic, depressive to be so fucking joyously beautiful? You see, Van Gogh's art has always been about seeing the beauty in even the most mundane moments, despite the hardships we face. The vibrance in a cafe terrace, the spirituality in a cloudy, windy field, the life in an ordinary pot of flowers. This ability to make the viewer feel so in love with the simple existence, of existence, is what makes Van Gogh so special. Let's take a look at one last painting. This is of course Starry Night, one of the most famous paintings of all time. Let's take a good look at it. What do you notice first? The huge enlivened stars in the night sky, the hills that almost seem to become one with it. Do you first notice the town, the community, that brings a feeling of togetherness? Or did you notice this dark, unsettling figure to the left? As a child, I had seen this painting hundreds of times and never knew what this figure was. Seaweed, Vegeta's hair, I decided to look it up a few months back. This is a cypress tree. Turns out cypress trees have long been said to symbolize death. But what is it doing there in this beautiful painting? Just look at it. It's so eerie and so off-putting. Look at its position on the painting, set to the very left, isolated. It's almost as if this tree is Van Gogh himself. Think about it. Van Gogh was a mentally ill depressive, always able to see life in such magnificent ways, transcribe it onto canvas in exquisite colors, but could never feel as though he were a part of it. He was alienated by his parents and by much of society for his illnesses. As a young man, he was rejected as a missionary because he didn't hold the proper qualities for missionary work. His whole life he was rejected and unappreciated as an artist.
Nobody would take them, so I had to eat them!
It's very clear that Van Gogh is the cypress tree. But as mentioned before, cypress trees have long been said to symbolize death. And 1 year after painting Starry Night, July 27, 1890, Van Gogh would shoot himself in the chest and go on to pass away 30 hours later. His brother Theo would recount Vincent's final words on his deathbed. Van Gogh's pain was a curse. Just as we are all dealt some sort of pain, so was Van Gogh. But Vincent used his pain as a blessing to remind us to enjoy the starry night, because all some can see is a dark cypress tree.